And welcome to this edition of the IndyLARP podcast. Today I have with me Eugene Davis, Wes Robinson, and Stacy Clifton. And we are going to talk about a few various topics. Wes and Eugene are the resident authorities on Werewolf the Apocalypse. We're going to go over some differences between it and some other werewolf games and other werewolves, like D&D werewolves and so forth. Then we're also going to talk about role-playing versus role-playing, R-O-L-E, role-playing, versus R-O-L-L, role-playing. And then we'll finish up with a hands-on storytelling style versus a hands-off storytelling style. So, Eugene, I like Werewolf. We all like Werewolf. We've all played or are currently playing Werewolf the Apocalypse. Yes. We've all played Forsaken as well. Yes. Werewolf Forsaken, the New World. And there are similarities between the two and differences, but we're not really going to go into that part. But what I do want to go into is how Werewolf the Apocalypse, how the werewolves in that setting are different from, say, Wolfman, or the different werewolves from, say, D&D, or even folklore.
Okay. What?
I'm waiting for you, sir.
Jesus, don't do it. I would say the biggest difference from werewolves in movies and other such folklore of real life, what the World of Darkness has for werewolves, is that it's not a curse. It's not, there's this one werewolf running around and he bit you and now you're a werewolf. That's just not happening.
Right, which is usually how it is in the movies or even in folklore. Yeah. You get bit by a werewolf, you turn into a werewolf.
They wanted to make it like vampire.
Yeah, pretty much.
Werewolves aren't like vampires. They're 10 times cooler.
I agree.
But in the World of Darkness, it's more of a lineage. Like, you are born you are a werewolf when you were born because someone in your family is related to a werewolf.
Or was a werewolf
himself.
Or was a werewolf himself. And that goes back countless ages to Gaia.
Yeah, pretty much the beginning of creation in mankind.
The world.
Creation and mankind.
And mankind. Mankind is a period at the end of the sentence.
They came well after creation, if you're a creationist. As far as evolution, mankind evolved way later than when werewolves were created. Yes.
But that's the biggest, I'd say, difference. There's a lot of folklore about what a werewolf can be, and like as if they are no longer humans. Like they can't be walking around as a normal
human. They're more beast than human, basically, in folklore.
Yeah. But in the World of Darkness, you can look perfectly normal and it'd be very difficult to tell a human from a werewolf if they didn't want to show you they were a werewolf.
Okay.
Barring certain rules.
Well, yeah, there's always that.
Well,
it's still difficult to tell. But
Well, one of the things that's actually in the book that nobody uses is called the curse. In the table, in the MET guide, it says if your rage is higher than a human's willpower, they will walk across the street to not have to deal with you.
That's more of a predatory nature thing.
That means this person is scary.
Well, and that's just like with vampires of low humanity or on a path. They're more pale and deathly looking. They look like they're sick and need to be in a hospital. And nobody plays that aspect either.
No.
Well, that's another topic for another time.
Unnaturally pale. All kinds of horrible
and worthless.
Worthless.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
But it'd be like if somebody saw you, West, walking down the street and they're like, that's a big, bearded, creepy guy, I'm going to avoid him. It's basically what you get. You can't tell he's a werewolf, but you can tell something about this man is frightening, even if he doesn't look.
His predatory nature comes through. Or in vampire terms, his beast is showing. Oh dear, your beast is showing. You better cover that up.
One of the biggest differences about White Wolf and their werewolves is the forms they can shift into, they can change. as they can be in their human, their near human, their wolf, their near wolf, and their big, burly, crazy werewolf shifting form. So, like in a lot of folklores, they just have human and wolf. Some folklores have human and bestial monster, and some just have the monster. So,
well, like Wolfman, he was human by day, and then on the night of the full moon, boom, he's the Wolfman. Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed. Like in and I curse me for saying this. You can curse me later. Twilight, New Moon, they did human form and wolf form.
You were cursed when you thought about it.
Yeah, I know. She has the nerd movie. So.
Hey, my aunt gave me those.
She's a female. She's allowed.
But yeah, there's
I think I was
Grimm,
thinking how big the check
for example, the show Grimm on CBS, NBC 13. They're lycanthropes, so to speak. They have their human form and then their beast-like form that they assume.
I like their werewolves. They're really cool.
Yeah, their were critters are really cool.
That's somewhat similar to Lost Girl on Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
Where most of the times they just look like normal humans unless they're actually actively trying to look.
And that's what I've noticed is the more common theme is man and creature. Not so much man and wolf like Twilight did. Or, even in Dungeons and Dragons, they have wolf, human, and then Kronos. So there's a wolfman.
Which I'm actually playing a second edition Dungeons and Dragons game now where I am a true blood lycanthrope werewolf.
Nice.
So.
See, now, another thing, too, I noticed with Apocalypse is they've taken in the spiritual aspect, more like a Native American type spiritual aspect, as opposed to other forms.
The animistic versions of shamanism.
That guy.
Everything has a spirit. Everything is alive. And the earth is sick and in danger, and it needs our help to protect it.
Mm-hmm.
Pause. So everything's got a spirit. And there are good and bad spirits and not so good and bad spirits. Like the wild would be neutral. Ish.
The wild is on its own side. Screw everybody else.
Well, it's chaotic neutral. Pretty much. Then you got the weaver and you got the worm. And then things changed as the setting developed. Because I think even in second ed, the worm didn't go crazy yet, did it? Or the weaver didn't go crazy yet?
The worm has always been
way?
crazy. It's just exactly how the outcome of the corruption that the worm turned into was taken. Because in second ed, you had things like seventh generation, which was abduction of children and indoctrinating them into the worm's ways and raising them, which is how Lord Albert got his renown to become King Albert. Is that corruption kind of took a back seat because nobody really wanted to think about corrupting children.
Yeah.
So it was second edition was more dark.
Yeah. Which is what the World of Darkness as a whole was supposed to be. It was very dark. But that was probably a little too dark for some people's taste, and that's probably why they lightened up a hair.
And hence it became Black Dog game stuff.
Yeah. Werewolf is so different from any of the other genres. It really is. It's more involved. Because you've got the Umbra, which in and of itself is...
Don't use Umbra singular. Umbra is plural.
Well, yeah, Umbra's...
Because we can go through the 13 realms, including the Aether, the Abyss, Wolfhome, Pangea, every single tribe.
Another 15 realms on top of that. Then you've got, the Deep Umbra, the Dark Umbra, the Near Umbra, the Penumbra.
I want to play in a game where we go out beyond the stars and find the planetary incarnate of other systems that they talk about.
Booty and sex. But, I mean...
Star Trek meets werewolf.
Technically, theoretically, it is possible, and it is talked about in the rules. There's actually a right in order to make sure you don't dissolve into spirit stuff when you go into deep space Umbra. So
nice.
And there are spirits like Miros, the spirit of Pluto, talks about other spiritual Gaias for other planets.
Nice.
You read too much.
I read way too much.
Yeah, you read way more than I do. I wish everything was an audiobook. I can listen to someone else read it Provided they don't have a drab and monotone voice and talk like this all the time.
Good.
Rage Across the Heavens, Volume 2, Chapter 4. Where the hell is that dragon guy coming from?
Well, that's like...
Or Antihelios and you. What you must need to know for the apocalypse.
Well, yeah. At the time, it will be...
Please turn the page.
So awful.
So it's so in-depth and so much that I believe this is about Werewolf. I believe, and see if you understand and you can agree with me on this. Werewolf has as much depth to it as anybody could want to get out of it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
If you want to be a hack and slash, get a rune, go be a hack and slash, get a rune. You don't care what the spirits have to say to you.
Or,
for instance,
let's say you're a vampire player, you're trying out werewolf, so you want to try something familiar. You're used to playing a Ventru, so why not play
Shadow Lord Philodix?
Shadow Lord or more
Silverfang? Actually,
You're
more
a Ventru, you're a
Sombra.
Okay.
Yes. So you play a Silverfang, you play just about anything would fit with it except for Philodix.
Oh,
Or no, wait, no, Philodix would fit.
Ragabash.
Ragabash, thank you. Yeah, Ragabash wouldn't quite fit well with it, but everything else would fit just fine. Thirds, maybe not either, but
You don't want your first character to be a third.
depending on whether you're like the cutthroat business guy as to whether you're in a rune or a Philodix or a Galliard.
You don't want your fifth character being a third unless your name is West.
Yeah.
But like this is one of the greatest things I love about Werewolf is like you go to a vampire game and you've got to go out and you've got to continuously motivate yourself to find something to do, to get yourself motivated, to get involved in something that's going around. And you go to a vampire game and there's the back room. And your entire point, if you don't know anything, is to get into that back room. So that's what motivates your
So
character.
you become the sheriff, like every other werewolf.
The 6-hour meeting.
Getting invited to a meeting makes
into the back
you an
room.
important person.
Yeah.
Or in West's case, a primogen.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
I got
just
myself
to get
promoted
into
to a
that
primogen up the
But see,
trigger.
and that's the thing too, that to kind of touch on another topic we talked about in a previous podcast was cross genre.
Yeah.
Werewolf doesn't really cross genre that well as mechanically.
Yeah.
But as far as like story wise, it's great.
Oh yeah.
It's perfect.
Every aspect of the werewolf genre can fit
Into just about any
in
other
every
genre.
place, yes.
Really into any genre.
Yeah.
So that Tremere is using spirit thaumaturgy or spirit manipulation to make fetishes and make spirits do what he wants. A third over here who happens to have spirit network hears about it, decides to go find out why somebody's messing with his spirit friends.
Well, and then too, I mean, if from a storyteller standpoint, if you use werewolves as NPCs in your vampire game, two things will happen. Well, one thing will happen. The other is this or this. Okay, the one thing that will happen, your players will have no end of complaining.
I have an idea.
Yes.
Maybe we should talk about why vampire people think werewolf is all about combat and not about the story.
That is one of the things I was going to get to.
Well, let's get to it.
I have a good story about that too.
That is one thing I've noticed. I'll use my cousin Kevin as an example. I offered him to play in our werewolf game. I wanted him to be in my pack. Oddly, it became my pack. I wasn't looking to be alpha. They're like, oh, John knows more about werewolf than we do. He should be the alpha.
It happens sometimes.
And I'm
Happens
fine with
a lot.
that. I'm fine with that. So I talked to Kevin. I'm like, hey, you should play. And he goes, isn't that just combat? I'm like, no. He goes, well, if I make the character that doesn't want to be a combat monkey, what do I make? And I go, well, I'll do a 10 of thirds. I mean, to me, that was the natural choice. Spirit. And he goes, okay, well, I, as in a 10 of thirds with no physical gifts and not a whole lot of physical traits.
Still kick ass.
And I go, but you can still kick ass if you have to, even if you only had 4 physical traits because you gain 8 when you go to Krynos. But I was like, aside from that, though, how do you fight without fighting directly? I look at what gifts he could get as basic gifts, and I'm like, easy. Spirit speech. I think call spirit's one of them.
Summon spirit.
Right, yeah, summon spirit. And I'm like, then offer the spirit something to go take care of this issue for you.
Write a spirit binding, bind a fire spirit to fight for you.
Yeah.
Command spirit.
You know,
That's
but
good.
I was like, there's this gift, this right, this power, this thing here you can do. And there's all these things he can do to where he doesn't have to physically lift a finger to fight.
Yes.
And he was like, that's really cool. And he wanted to play that, but then between JP's vampire game, work, and family, he just didn't have time.
It's hard to find.
And he was moving at the time, too. So, matter of fact, he was going to be on the podcast tonight talking about role-playing versus role-playing, but couldn't because his daughter had a band thing. I forget, Summer Jamboree, I want to say it was called. Anyway, a band thing.
It's a really bad day for a summer jamboree today.
Yeah.
It's not really summary out, but we miss you, Kevin. You should have been
Spring
here.
Jamboree. Something. Anyway, she reminded them last minute they'd forgotten. Somehow it slipped through the cracks. Whether it was forgotten or she, being a teenager, waited till the last minute to actually tell them. But regardless, he wasn't able to make it here, but we can get him on the next time around.
Anyway, back to Vampire Players thinking.
Yes. But he asked me, he's like, isn't it just all combat? And I'm like, no. And then he wanted me to give specific instances. And I honestly couldn't think of any because most storytellers I played under did more combat than they did not combat. And it was harder to remember the non-combat things. But then I started trying to give him examples like vision quests or spirit quests, getting your rank, doing all the other little things that the intricacies. Now, one thing I have noticed in Werewolf that isn't talked about, and a lot of times not even allowed, is the other changing breeds, too.
See, Farah, I mean, when you read the Farah are supposed to be very rare.
Yeah.
Like, if a werewolf ever meets a Farah, he should remember that and pass that message along.
Well, and that's
Except
the thing
for
is...
two.
Except for two, and those, even then, are not.
And one of which is the Naga.
And you're
No.
not supposed to meet them.
The Naga are legend. The Naga are myth. The Naga don't exist.
But you know what I'm saying. If you ever meet one,
Oh, yeah.
you should not be living to tell us about it.
Yeah.
And by the way, sharks, weresharks,
Oh,
should
okay.
not
Awesome.
be here.
Well,
Shit. This is a bull shark. This first on the shark. Let me know.
he
Okay.
can
Don't
swim
judge
up the
me.
Mississippi, right?
Okay, fine.
Don't judge me.
Okay, great white weresharks.
No,
The
should
great
not.
white ones should not be
Okay.
But Korax.
Korax and Ratkin.
Hang
on. Time out. Back to the Wereshark real quick.
I
We are in Indiana. There are no sharks except at the zoo.
You can go get some baby sharks down at the pet store.
A rare baby
know.
shark.
Very, very, very
Yeah.
rare.
You see my point. Moving on.
Yes. These are things that should not be met very many
Right.
times. But ratkin, if you're in a city,
They're Ratkin in
there
that
should be
there's
some
ratkin in that city. And Korax go from cairn to cairn.
Yeah. Another thing that probably shouldn't be met, in all honesty, is Mokale. They're
Not this environment.
yes.
It's too cold here.
If you're out in the Galapagos Islands, sure, that's probably teeming with Mokale.
You in the Gulf of Mexico, you're in the Caribbean, you in
Yeah.
Florida. Yeah, meet were lizards all over the place.
Speaking of Mokale, that reminds me. Remember when Coons played a Mokale?
No, I've purged that from my memory, sir.
Okay. Most people were under the impression that when you are summoned, when a vampire uses summon, that you are to proceed to the summoned person's last location
Oh, Jesus.
in the
This
quickest
is
in the
It's
quickest
not
means
bad.
possible.
Oh,
That was how they always thought. Quickest means possible. Don't get followed. You deter people from following you. You rationalize all this shit, and then V20 comes out, and it's not quite that way. It's actually safest means possible, which, in what I'm about to tell you, could be either for a Mokale.
Oh,
They summon the Mokale. They summon Coons' character, and you know how Coons is. You know how he plays his character. He's a bit abrasive. They summon him because they're going to kill him. So they thought. So Coons comes to me and he goes, okay, they've summoned me. I got to go to X location. Where's it at as far as real world geography? And I go, okay, you're here. You got to go here. Okay. And he goes, and I got to go there as quick as possible, right? Because at the time, that's what we thought was the rule. And I go, yes. He goes, I'm shifting into whatever their version of Krynos is, our giant dragon form.
Oh no, there was Tokyo. It's Godzilla.
That is pretty much what it was. It's Godzilla walking to Elysium. He shows up, breaking the wall down,
Breaking the veil, breaking the masquerade, breaking the
looks at
As a
whoever
physics
summoned him and says, what do you want? And they go, nothing. And they look at me like, what did you let into this game? I'm like, hey, you guys were stupid enough. But
that's the thing. Vampires bug me. They never assume how bad things can get. They always pretty much assume they're the worst in the game.
They're the biggest and the baddest.
If there are werewolves and there are vampires, every vampire is scared shitless of a werewolf. Every werewolf could give a shit less about the vampires.
Exactly.
No one plays it. No one plays it.
now what I like is when you have, I'll use a Grawl for an example.
Werebear, yeah.
Because Grawl, instead of spending rage to get extra actions, they spend it to either do extra damage or... What was the two things?
You add to your physical
damage
traits.
or traits. Yeah.
Add to your number of damage dealt, 1-per-1 basis. And I think there was one other thing like soaking damage or something like that.
Yeah, something asinine. So I'm a Mokale, I'm in my human form, and I decide I'm going to punch the Bruja who's trying to be a badass.
You were a Goral.
Right.
You said Mokale.
Or did I? I'm sorry. Okay, I'm a Grawl. I'm in human form. I'm going to punch the Bruja that's running off at the mouth because I've been alive for longer than he has even been thought of. So, well, probably not that long, depending on how old he is.
You had the memory.
But still, it's like, okay, run off at the mouth. Are you done? And then you make your physical challenge. Oh, I win. And I look at the storyteller and go, I'm spending 5 rage to do 5 extra damage. What? Boom! 6 lethal. That hurts.
Which technically 6 lethal to the jaw would dislocate somebody's head from their body.
In theory, in reality, 6 lethal to the head would kill them. In the game, however, there are no cold shots, so which kind of
there's
sucks.
a house rule about it.
Unless it's Thanatosis or staking.
Exactly. Unless it's Thanatosis or staking, there are no cold shots unless it's a house rule otherwise. Which is another thing that I hope, in a way, that they change when they write when they do Met 20.
But they're always assuming that there's nothing else here. There's only vampires here, even though anything can get there and anything can find them.
I have found that even as a storyteller, when I tell the players that it's a multi-genre game, they still assume that they're the only thing there.
They just assume that they're the biggest dung beetle on this pile of crap.
Yeah, and not realizing that the T-Rex is about to stomp on them.
The thing you learn fast in Werewolf when you're playing is no matter how badass you think you are, you really are nothing compared to what's out there.
Exactly. Well, it's like, okay, when I ran Syndicate started out as vampire, and then after a year I had 30 or so players, and I started allowing werewolves. And then after another few months, I allowed a couple of mages in. A few more months later, I allowed someone to play a mummy, and then it became 2 someones. So then I had 2 mummies, 2 mages, a handful of werewolves, and then the rest were vampires, and I was up to like 40 players at that point. Then it got bigger still, and I ended up with, I think all told, I had 30 vampires, 10 of which were Sabbat, the other 20 were Camarilla or Independent. I had like 10 werewolves. Then I had a cabal of mages, of like 4 mages. I had a mummy or 2. I had a demon, fallen demon. I had a wraith. I had a changeling briefly, who should have shriveled up and died instantly.
Oh my god!
Finality, I'm dead! Should have played a Dantain. No.
Buddha chase.
Yeah. I think I even had a Reckoning Hunter briefly. I say briefly because I think he started to play it and didn't want to play it anymore.
Realize how
Because I don't think anything killed it. I think he just realized... Well, I think part of it was the powers were just too out there that he just couldn't grasp how to play the power.
some of the powers in the Orange Book just never needed to see the light of day.
Yeah. Any book with flames on the cover is really a flaming book.
It's like, I see you do it. I'm going to take that power from you and use it on you, which means I have to know what every genre's powers can do.
But I've used that book before.
Yes, you have.
It was fun.
Burn in hell. Anyway.
All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and move on to our next topic.
No, well, we still haven't talked about why Werewolf is not necessarily all about combat.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't?
Because we have not talked about
Because we kept getting off topic.
Hey,
Okay.
the structure.
Maybe I should tell my story.
Okay.
Okay.
But move closer to the mic because you're barely showing up on the little graph here.
Or you could just speak up.
Hey, Daddy, why don't
Or
you
I
tell
can
me a
hand the
story?
mic to you if you
No.
want.
Fudge you all. Anyway, so I don't know how long you guys been trying to get me to play Werewolf.
Forever.
I think it was
In a
like
day.
the second you met me, you were like, "You should play Werewolf.
Well, they're
You
like
should
that.
come to the fold."
Don't feel special because they're like that with everybody.
Well, I know, but it took me. What was your Werewolf game? 2007 or 8? 2008.
Yeah. I think.
I
It was
started LARPing in
Ours.
2005 at I2T. That was my first time role playing. The second game that I was in, I was playing a Bruja, and I was the door, quote unquote. And DeMarcus and Little D, Darnell, came bum rushing towards the door and said, "We need to talk to your prince. You need to let us by." And I said, "Fuck you, no. You're not getting by. What? No." And I look, and they're like yelling at me and stuff like that. And I look over and I see Brian Stepien, and he's coming over and he's like,
Oh, shit.
I'm like, "Yay, back up!" Because I was a new player and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So he's like, "It's okay, let them through." The prince said, "Yes, they can come in." So I let them in. They shoulder bumped me and stuff like that. After that point, you guys were trying to get me to play.
I would love to have had King of the Hill. Shoulder bump, you fall down.
Yeah. But anyway.
That's the one thing about werewolves. When we play werewolves,
Yeah.
we play werewolves like we don't care who you are. When we say we need to do something, you better let us do it.
Yeah, right. Right. So, and I was a newly embraced kindred at that time too, which was kind of fun. But anyway, so 3 years later, I finally was like, okay, fine, I'll, give in to peer pressure and try it out. So,
Peer pressure, folks. It usually does work. Just give it time.
Yeah.
You want to play werewolf.
Anyway,
You know that you want to play werewolf. Subliminal messages work well, too.
Well, it
Werewolf.
takes dating one, I guess, right? No.
Dating a subliminal message? What?
No!
Dating a werewolf.
Anyway,
I'm
furry enough, I guess.
I don't know. I call him Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with the bun chops.
Anyway,
Moving on.
so my first character was a kinfolk because, why not start at the bottom and move up? Well, I was a kinfolk who didn't know what werewolf was and what they are and all that stuff. So I was acting
Well,
like
and you
normal.
were kind of also a player that didn't really know what
Well,
it
yeah,
was
right.
or-
So when the first time my character ever saw one of the characters go into Krynos, she freaked out. She lost it. You guys were there, you saw it, and so yeah, but
She didn't have to freak out. Her character freaked out, which is good because she, as a player, does not have
right,
to freak out.
right. But anyway, yeah, I worded that wrong. But anyway.
Oh no, you worded it perfectly. I mean, you freaked them.
Yeah.
If I just saw a normal human turn into a 9 to 12 foot tall furry killy thing,
Or
I'm
a
gonna
wolf
freak-
talking.
or a wolf talking, I'm gonna
Yeah.
freak the hell out. It
But
doesn't matter
anyway,
whether I need to
when-
or not.
I think that was a really fun game because everybody else was in a pack. Ben Henry helped me play because I've never played before. He didn't have a pack, so I just hung out with him, and we had a really good story. I mean, it was a lot of fun, but it made me want to play more because of the storyline that game was going and how everybody interacted with everybody else. You know, because it wasn't all about combat with that game. There was story. There was at the moots even they told stories of what happened.
Yeah, speaking of moots, you never did give me that video.
Okay, fine, I'll give it to you sometime.
Moots.
Anyway, eventually 20 years from now.
But what I'm saying is now the one that I'm playing in currently is nothing like the one that John ran. It's nothing like it. It's all combat.
Well,
and it's because it's vampire players running a werewolf game.
Yeah, that is part of the problem. But also, that's the thing is, one thing because when I ran that werewolf game, I ran Forsaken prior to that and helped Eric run it as well.
I did too. So.
Yeah, and in running Forsaken and being under the strictures I was under because of the things they perceived as happening that Eric didn't actually have happening. But because they perceived certain things happening, I had to adjust things to where it wasn't going to be all combat, or if it was going to happen in the Umbra. So I took that same philosophy and applied it to Apocalypse, and it works quite well.
Yeah.
I mean, you really don't want to go fighting all the stuff out in front of everybody. It's called the Veil for a reason. It's called the Masquerade for, whatever genre you're in. You as a storyteller need to be able to sit there and go, okay, let's see, my genre is werewolf. Werewolf fights big, nasty spirit creatures that can look unearthly. So why would I want them invading the Earth realm?
I see that as part of the problem, is the storyteller can make the game as he wishes it. And since most storytellers don't see the spirit realm as being anywhere close to useful.
Well, see, I do see it as useful. Very useful.
Well, I love that's why I play Third. That's why I play the Shaman. That's why I play the Crescent Moons, the Thayer, whatever you want to call it. And you make me. I am pigeonholed. So,
Chandler.
So I play this because I know that playing in the Umbra or the Shadowlands or any of these other things are just as useful in getting to where you need to be, because that's generally the only reason it's used as a back door to get to where you need to be.
Yeah.
But there's also the spirits themselves are more of an ally than a human could be.
Oh yeah, definitely. The Umbra, in my opinion, is underutilized by werewolf storytellers. Talk about werewolf. We've covered pretty much all that I wanted to on werewolf for this cast.
Role-playing versus role-playing?
We've covered a little bit of that in a way. Okay, role-playing, R-O-L-E, as in rolling... No, role as in R-O-L-E, as in role-playing, you're playing a role. You're playing your character. Your character is the role you're playing, just like an actor playing the role of whoever on a TV show. Then there's R-O-L-L playing, role-playing, where you're rolling the dice. You're playing the character that's optimally built out of the book.
I.e. twinking.
Yes. You've twinked, you've cheesed your character to the point where instead of having a concept of I'm a lawyer, I'm a judge, I'm a whoever, it's not that. It's I'm a combat monkey, I'm the ultimate thaumaturge, I'm the ultimate Ventru, whatever.
I'm a social monkey. I'm a mental monkey. I'm a physical monkey.
Exactly. So when you have the combat monkey, you have the player that sits down, they make their character, and they go, okay, I'm going to play a Brewhog because I have celerity and potence. I'm not going to take presence at the beginning. I'm going to pump 2 dots into one of the 2 and then 1 in the other one. And then I'm going to spend the 3 points to get to the other one. So now I've got 2 dots in celerity and 2 dots in potence starting out. Not bad. Only cost me 3 points. Okay, now I'm going to move to my abilities. I have 5 points to spend. Well, I'm going to take 3 dots in brawl and 2 dots in dodge. And now I'm going to take some of my free points to buy up those 2.
apiece.
To 5 apiece is what Gene just whispered because he's embarrassed.
Because John is
No,
describing
because he
one of
thinks
his character.
But he's not the only one that's done this.
No.
Then I'm going to take as many negative things as I can to give me those free points. But I want to take little piddly shit like can't cross running water that will never come into play in a LARP.
Or in the werewolf setting.
Unless your LARP is held on the banks of the Ohio River. Not going to happen. Not going to matter. Unless the storyteller...
Mark of the
we
Wolf,
play
Mark
on
of the
the
Predator,
canal.
Mark of the Predator, strict carnivore,
Yeah.
wolf eaters,
Light sleeper.
light sleeper. Well, no, heavy
You know,
sleeper.
unless you play in an area where there is, like Stacy just said, unless you play on the canal, the can't cross running water isn't going to really come into effect. So you take that, you take repelled by crosses, which again, less likely to come into effect.
Garlic.
Repulsed by garlic,
Cast
no reflection, eerie presence.
Do what?
Eerie presence is used.
It's
Ear
used a
press-
lot, but it's not necessary. It doesn't.
There's no real effect to it. You know what
The
I mean?
people use the effect to try and creep other players out.
Right. 'Cause it
They don't
doesn't
use
work
that in
because
their
they don't
social,
play
in their downtimes.
But-
Like, I have like 15,000 influences. Technically,
it. Right.
eerie
But hold
presence
on.
should mess with that.
Hold on. If I have eerie presence, every one of you guys, you guys are within 10 feet. I believe that's right, right? It's
Sure.
granted.
I
Okay.
think it is, yes.
Are creeped out by me.
Yes.
No one plays it.
You're right.
Well,
Because
again,
instead, they look at your tag and go, oh, and then move on.
Yeah.
or they understand, they rationalize that you're a vampire, I'm a vampire, I've seen eerie presence before. Matter of fact, I've seen scarier stuff before.
Yeah.
Your eerie presence is pretty much useless.
I remember when I was playing in John's game and I was playing my Hilljack, and
I love that character. That was an awesome character.
and like somebody walked up to me with eerie presence, and I started inching away from them as I was speaking, moving around the table until I was away from them. I'm like, you're a weird one. It's like,
Yeah. But people that twink out their character like that have now went from having an actual concept to designing the character to perform one thing. And only one thing. In this case, combat. Yes, win combat. You don't win LARP.
You
well, it
achieve
depends
your
on
goal, you don't
your
win.
goals.
You can achieve a goal, you don't win LARP. The game is not to be won.
True.
You don't...
Some
Just-
people see it the
It's not
same
good
thing,
to
though.
lose.
Unfortunately, some people see it as the same thing.
That's what
Yeah,
vampire
unfortunately.
feels like.
Well, and here's
to
the
me.
thing, too, is... I'll use D&D as an example. You can't win Dungeons and Dragons. You can't beat an infinite game. Just like with Vampire, you can't beat an infinite game.
But in Vampire, technically, you can the finiteness of the city.
Yeah,
It's like,
you can
once I'm
achieve.
Prince, I win.
Yeah, you can achieve princedom. You can
Just
achieve
somebody
all
comes to kill
the
me.
all the influence you want. You can do those things. But that's not really winning LARP.
As opposed
That's
to
a personal win.
as opposed to Werewolf, where you really can't win.
No.
Yeah, well, any game called the Apocalypse. I mean, that's like
If it was Vampire the Gehenna.
Yeah. Well, okay, like Werewolf. Werewolf is to role playing, is to gaming. That the Norse mythology is to mythology. I mean, you know, when you go into your mythology with "we're all going to die," that's pretty much what Werewolf is. We're all going to die at some point in time. We just don't know when or how or who.
It's like playing Cthulhu.
We're going to cut our own little
Yeah.
niche into this world and try to make sure that when it goes down, we feel
We're
good
still
about
in that niche.
We're still with it. We feel good about it.
Right. But let's say, okay, so when you roll, ROLL, play, you tend to make characters that really have no substance as far as any sort of real, okay, I have roll 4, dodge 4, but I have no other appreciable skill. I am better than a heavyweight boxer. A heavyweight boxer is like a 3 in brawl. A 4 in brawl is unreal, and 5 is just asinine. As far as technical terms go.
Not including martial arts. Bruce Lee would be a 5. Bruce Lee would be a brawl 5, dodge 5.
Bruce
Melee
Lee would be a
5.
martial arts 5, if you use the martial arts as opposed to brawl dodge.
Yes.
He would be a 5 because, number one, I don't think anyone's actually beat him.
No.
And number 2, he created his own fighting style.
Yes. He's dedicated his life to it.
And that fighting style is sanctioned by whoever it is that sanctions martial arts as a whole.
That's what 5 gets you. 5 gets you Bruce Lee.
5 is Bruce Lee. 4 is Chuck Norris.
With his
Chuck Norris wishes he was the jockstrap of Bruce Lee.
Exactly. But no, 3 will get you Steven Seagal.
Kicking you in the shin and making you do a backflip? No, that was Chuck Norris again.
with his fist for a
But
chin.
the problem I have with a lot of the vampire games is like you can manage not putting physical or mental stats on your sheet. Because if you are a sociable person, you can out-social another person without throwing chops.
Yes, but don't sit there. And this kind of comes back to making a character that's you.
Yes.
Don't be Stephen Black, and I don't mean this in a negative way if you happen to be listening. Don't sit there and go, okay, I'm Stephen Black, who really isn't much of a social person in real life, and then make a vampire character with 15 social traits and give him abilities that you cannot roleplay, and then force the storyteller to force the players to react in a specific manner.
You gotta try to
He
remember.
did that at a Requiem game.
Yep.
He tried to talk someone into something, and he goes, I blow an etiquette or whatever it was to have this really great speech. Then say the fucking speech. At least give us the gist of the goddamn thing.
It is a LARP.
Homina. Awesome speech. Braveheart.
Yeah, even that at a minimum would have been nice. But no, he goes to the storyteller, throws his chop. This was an awesome whatever, made you compelled to do something.
See, that's
And I'm like, no, that's horse shit is what that is.
ROLL play.
Yeah.
You gotta put on your character sheet what's there, and then what you're doing. Remember what's on your character sheet. If you have 3 social traits,
Don't put anything on your character sheet. You cannot represent yourself.
Exactly. It's not that you have to be that
opposite.
Or it's not that your character has to be that person. I think I got that backwards.
It's not that
No, it's not that the character has to be you, but you have to be able to play the character. So if I make a character, and I sit there and let's say I'm gonna make a biker. Well, I, John, have never been a biker, but I've watched enough Sons of Anarchy to know what a biker pretty much acts like. They're all, pretty rough and tumble. So for a clan, I'm going to go say Gangrel or Bruja because they're the 2 that would be most likely. And then, yes, I'm going to have Brawl. I'm going to have some dodge, but less dodge than Brawl because I never see them duck hardly. But you also make sure that your physical traits match by going, okay, they're tough, they're stalwart, they're tenacious, they're also quick and brutal. So now you've got a good assortment of traits that you can brawl, you can dodge, you can be tough enough to take it.
When I make a character,
eloquent as a biker, and thus your character
or empathy
not
even
Well,
stand there and be eloquent.
I could see Charming because of Jack.
Yeah, if you're baby faced, Jax.
but that's
might
the best thing
have
to do. Is
charming.
not to take 1 or 2 things and then multiply them. Take a number of things.
Yeah.
And then slowly multiply them.
Yes.
You get XP every game, so they're only a point apiece for crying out loud. So sure you want to start out with 2 brawl, 1 dodge.
I mean, you got to be the sheet, and the sheet has to be you.
Yeah.
I mean,
You have to be able to portray what's on that sheet.
To a
And
certain
the
extent.
sheet has to be within your limit to be able to portray, again, to a certain extent, as you're just saying.
Like I'm a fat ass. There's no way I got athletics coming out the yin yang.
Not necessarily. Well, okay. Not like athletics 4 or 5, no. But you may easily well have, if you're dexterous enough,
My character sheet,
athletics 1 or 2.
I could represent that. But if I was to take etiquette, I could be proper. I'm not going to take leadership 4 or 5. I don't think I could be that type of a leader personally.
Right.
I could be a person who could lead a small group. I'm not going to be a person who can do the Braveheart speech. You know, I'm not that type of person. But that's more into the social area.
Right. If I sit down, we'll use this biker as an example. I look at abilities, I'm going to go, okay, most bikers can fight, most bikers can shoot, most bikers can use a knife. Brawl, melee, and firearms. But I don't need more than 1 or 2 dots in each starting out.
Just because you're a marksman.
Yeah, I'm not a pro. I'm well-to-do. So 1 in each and maybe 2 in the brawl because you're probably going to do that more than the others.
Maybe I take my gun to the fire range on the weekends. And...
you put a dot or 2 in your dodge. Then if you've got enough free points still left, then you can go, okay, well, there's some other little things. They repair their own bikes. So you take repair or scrounge. Then you sit there and you go, well, they do have good survival skills, not like wilderness survival, but city, so that may be more streetwise. So, but if you look at the concept you put in front of you and you dissect the concept to figure out what abilities, what backgrounds, what traits you want to put in there, then you also have to decide, can I play a character that can do this? Well, a physical character is not that hard to play. It really isn't. No. But if you sit there and you go, okay, I'm going to take leadership, academics, you take all these mental and social things, you've got to be able to play some of that to some extent, or at least portray playing it.
I mean, if I got a lore of Changeling, and I don't necessarily have to have read the Changeling book.
Right, but lore's different too.
But I can go to the storyteller and can I have a mental challenge on this so I can see what I know?
Well, like at the Werewolf game, I was like, okay, I got Guru Lore 3. John, what do I know from that? He goes, throw me a challenge. Okay, I won the challenge, therefore I'm getting accurate information within my realm of knowledge. So then John gives me the information pertaining to Werewolf Lore 3, pertaining to the subject we're talking about.
Mental's easy to figure out. Like, I have the mental traits. I can go to a storyteller and be like, give me a chance to know this crap.
Exactly.
But if you're not smart enough to figure it out, and you, as the player, did figure it out, but your characters nowhere near have the physical traits to figure it out. What I try to do is find another player whose character sheet has the stats to be like, I should be able to figure this out. And be like, here, try this. Like a lot of players, a lot of storytellers like to use riddles in werewolf games. I'm not a riddle guy, but West is. Well, but my character has the stats to be able to figure out this riddle, and his character don't. It's perfectly fine for his player to tell my player what this riddle is, and my character to go, here it is. Because my character's smart enough to figure it out.
Right. See, and that's where we go into role, R-O-L-E, playing. You have to be able to play the role. You can't just sit there and min-max a character that's great at one thing. Josh Prevost, for example, made a character in Requiem designed around his weapon. Because his weapon gave him asinine bonus traits to this, that, and 42 other things. So that he sat there and he dumped all this shit in it to where when he has this weapon, you really can't beat him. Unless you disarm that weapon from him somehow or steal it when it's at his side, because it was a sword. Then he can't really do shit because the melee ability is no good without a weapon. For one. So when you design a character to solely do one thing and only one thing, that's not really R-O-L-E role-playing. That's R-O-L-L role-playing. That's min-maxing.
And if you do that, your storyteller's going to figure out a way of fucking you up.
Exactly. That's a good storyteller.
You got that sword and you're in a werewolf game, that's fine. This Ragabash just walked up, shook your hand, did taking the Forgotten, and walked away with your sword. You didn't even know it.
And it looks familiar. You may have owned one at one time.
You might be able to know who made it.
Yeah.
You don't know why you know that.
Right. There's that. There's, I've seen...
Don't be a narrow character concept.
Right. Don't sit there and go, okay, I'm going to play my brain's trailing off. Hang on.
Well, how about this? In the book, it says just because you don't have the ability, doesn't mean you can't do it. Right. It just means you're not able to make a living off of it.
Right. Now, remember, at some point, your character was a human being and did live a normal human life.
Right.
If all you did was have Brawl 3 and no mental traits, not only were you probably all you did was go out and fight in the street and fight because you're probably not smart enough to actually get a boxing deal.
No, he was a pro boxer that got one too many. And now he's got Parkinson's.
Like now you're a half retarded boxer who got embraced. And nobody wants to play that guy.
You dropped out of school to become a Golden Gloves boxer.
You want to get one and open real quick? Sorry. It's easy to edit out that by itself.
Pepsi next. No.
Pepsi Clear. Come on now.
I liked Pepsi Clear.
I did too.
It wasn't that bad. Okay.
Children of the 80s. So bad.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, I mean, and so if you were to not put the dots on your sheet, nothing says you can't do it.
Right. It's something you got to learn. I mean, you don't want to make your character with everything. Already off the bat, there's nothing to achieve at that point. And that's part of playing the game.
Tabletop versus MET.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas, tabletop, you can start with a dot and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Literally.
Oh, well, yeah. 13 dots.
Jack
I
of all
can
trades.
fill everything in here. Well, Jack of all trades a 5-point merit.
Mm-hmm.
That's an illusionary dot. But 13 dots, I can fill everything in that category with one dot.
Yeah. And 11 gets you all but 2 of them, and then the other is what, 9?
13.95.
13.95. So, yeah, it's still a good chunk. I mean, even at 5 in one category.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's, 10, 20.
You guys are making me miss tabletop.
Something.
I'm going to start a werewolf tabletop.
That's like
game
27
at some point in
abilities
time
in tabletop.
future.
And LARP, on the other hand, it's only 5. Somehow 27 turns into 5. And that's why I don't like the conversion that they give you for tabletop to LARP. It blows.
It's like if you have 3 or more in it, put a dot in it. Okay, there's 4.
Well, actually, what I remembered was like your physical, social, mental, basically, all your dots there, subtract 3 from each category.
Yes.
And I'm like, wait a minute, my max is 15. All the way up until X point. My max is 15.
Minus 3 is 12.
Yeah.
Which is actually just above your basic vampire at level at 13th gen.
Well, even 8th gen, isn't their max 5 still? For those, or does it go to 6 at 8th gen?
At tabletop, it is 5 still.
Yeah, so 15 being your max, well, in LARP, your max is 14 at 8th gen.
It takes rank
16.
5 to get above strength 5 in werewolf.
No, it takes rank 6.
Rank 6.
Yeah, to go above 5,
Yeah.
anything. Or technically, like, discipline or gifts, totems can make you go above the 5. Shifting makes you go
So
above
that
5.
gives you 15, but you can have 15 physical traits at rank 4?
Are you adding your Krynos form?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we need to move this segment along and get into the next one. We're at 2 hours and 22 minutes of recording.
Oh, plenty of editing.
Yeah.
You're not the one that's got to listen to this. You're trying to edit out all the ums and ums and...
And you're going to laugh your ass off.
You're right, I am.
So, there are people who play characters. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
There are people who play characters to play a concept. There are people who play characters to play characters.
Yeah.
And the concept and the character are completely different.
Well, and I agree with that because, I mean, I'm recently, for some reason, I'm having a hard time playing because I'm listening to all these people have really cool ideas, and I'm looking at my sheet and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Or why, all that stuff. And then they go out and ROLL play instead of role play. And I'm somewhat of the more method actor, kind of, because I like, if I'm going to get pissed off, I'm going to yell and scream and, all that
you
stuff.
get into the character.
I get into the character, but it's really hard when the environment is all ROLL players than role players, because if I fly off the handle,
Stop it, calm down. There's nothing to get upset about. We're just playing a game.
Right, exactly.
I'm playing a character.
And people are like, especially with you guys. I mean,
Well, I remember at the canals when, what was it, Marcus and Eric?
Darnell and Eric.
There were a couple times there I thought you guys were really going to duke it out. Because you guys were so involved with your characters that I couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't.
I have personally been slammed up against something at least twice, almost 3 times if you want to count Only slamming me up against the wall. But like the first time was when I was playing a werewolf. We were over by Talk City, and we were in a parking lot, and I was playing my alpha of the werewolves, Burning Arrow, and my beta at the time was Eric, and he got upset with me because he wanted to go kill vampires because they were causing issues for us. And I'm like, no, we're here to do something. The vampires are not important. He got upset at me. His character got upset at me, I should say. Eric grabbed me by my shirt collar and slammed me up against a car, literally. Which, whatever. Eric's a 6'3" tall black man, and I'm a 5'10.5" fat white man. But it didn't bother me because I knew we were doing it in character.
Exactly.
And somebody who was playing a vampire was stopping by and like, oh my God, stop. And me and Eric, in mid arguing back and forth, noses to nose, we stopped. Both of our heads turned simultaneously and we're like, what? Just plain voice, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, are you two okay? I'm like, we're just role-playing this scene out. Why? And the person had no idea. Because one of the rules in MET is no touching.
Right.
Yeah.
Which that was one thing, which I'll probably get to that part another time. Those 8 cardinal rules that need to be tweaked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can understand no touching. If Stephen Black were to get in my face and start yelling at me, I'd have a hard time not touching him.
Well, here's the thing,
but he would not enjoy that.
But here's the thing, though. If that's the difference between Eric and Stephen. Eric gets in your face to yell at you, it's his character.
Yes.
Stephen gets in your face to yell at you, it's probably Stephen.
Yes. Which, I mean, it's
there's that thin gray line.
If anybody I consider within my circle does it, I'm going to be fine with it, not even going to question it.
Well, and that brings us to another topic that I kind of want to touch on in this podcast, is differentiating the player from the character. How many times have I said I, referring to my character, talking out of character, still say I did this, I did that, when it was my character doing, you know what I mean?
We all
but that's a common
doing that all the time.
Yeah, there was this time that I went and killed this guy. Well, it's not me, John, going and killing this guy. It's my character, Fred, going and killing him.
It's not naturally. It's cross your fingers and hold them up when you're talking out of character. It's not natural.
Exactly. And that's also where a lot of the problems with metagaming can come in, because people don't think to cross their finger or somehow signify that they're out of character.
People overhear things, and then it's being said, and the character overhear this player saying this to this other player, and the character goes and takes that information.
See, that's why I like to disguise my real voice sometimes, because if I'm talking like in some sort of accent, or if I'm enunciating more or slurring more or whatever, and I start talking normally, they should know that I'm not in character.
Well, and that's why, as a storyteller, one of the rules I ended up making was, if you're in this small confined area, that's out of character. Anything you say there is out of character. If you're in the rest of the area, you're in character. Whatever you say, unless you're talking to me, is considered in character. And that way and that cut out a lot of the, well, no, we were out of character when we said that. My rule is and has been. So, and that's where a storyteller needs to step in and make those types of rulings. And say, this section, this small, little, tiny section, is out of character. Yeah, OC room. If you have a room you can dedicate to that, go ahead. Otherwise, when you're there to play. You should be able to be in character. But at the same time, when that game's done and the storyteller makes his wrap up, his final announcements, and everybody goes to leave, you should be able to drop that character. And not be like, I can't remember his name. They played B, Trip, and Razzie. They were good role players. Excellent role players. But they couldn't drop that.
ROLE, by the way.
Right. They were ROLE players. They were very good at it. They played the role perfectly. But when the game was over, they were still in that role for another hour and a half. It took them that long to kind of wind down. It's like, whoa. You need to get like an on-off switch on that, not just slowly cool the jets. So.
But see, I think I'm starting to become more of, I don't know how to play the character, so I'm just gonna be me.
And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily.
Yeah, it is, because I don't get into the character. So,
Gotta solidify that concept.
yeah.
It has to feel comfortable to you, though.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing: werewolf, you have to know as a werewolf so much information that you, most generally as a person, as a player, do not know.
Right. And that's where you sit down and you go, okay, I'll use my character as an example. Well, he's going to be the judge of Guru Society. Granted, it's on a small scale, but he's still a judge in the Guru Society. But I, John, don't know werewolf laws because they're not really posted anywhere except outside the litany. You know, because a lot of things are up to whatever pack alphas and sept alphas and stuff like that. So that's why I go, okay, I'm going to take law, specialize it in Guru law. So now my character, it's reflected that he knows this knowledge even if John doesn't. And then all I got to do is look at the storyteller and go, hey, I have this. Can I get a challenge to see if I know specifically what they're talking about or what the correct punishment is or whatever? And sometimes that works. And that type of thing is not so much ROLE playing to an extent. It is, but it isn't. It's you're taking things appropriate to the role, but it's not really anything you have to portray per se. Because it's not something you act out. You don't act out unless he tells you something and then you spout it out later. Then, you know, and that's where that comes in. But then that runs me into another thing. Being someone like Eric Austin, used to be anyways, he's gotten better at it. He's read every book and knows everything about everything, especially with vampire, because that was his pet subject, that and Wraith. Knows everything about everything in vampire. Plays his character, but doesn't reflect these things that he's spouting off in character on his sheet with the proper lore or occult ability.
And stay inside what's on the sheet.
Exactly. But at the same time, you should design your sheet to reflect what you as a player are capable of doing.
Right.
So if Eric knows all this and knows he's going to be spouting these things, then take a few dots in occult at a minimum.
Yeah.
You know, or you know, if your storyteller uses lore, then take a few dots in lore.
I remember at one point in time, I was thinking about coming into a game. I didn't even remember what game it was, but I was going to play a human, and I was going to take vampire lore, werewolf lore, mage. I was just going to take all these lores of stuff that I actually personally did know, and play a human.
And play you in a way.
Play me inside Vampire Society and see how long it took for the vampires to realize
that you weren't a vampire.
Not a vampire,
well,
even though he has this knowledge.
I kind of did the same thing when I played a ghoul that knew all the folklore and movie versions of werewolf and vampire.
Victim of the Masquerade.
Victim of the Masquerade. And when I was embraced, boy, did that character's world change. You know, because oh man.
But it's a concept.
Yeah.
And you grew with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
To come back to your concept about your human with all the lores, you know how long that lasts? The first vampire that is smart enough, player-wise, when the character shakes your hand, it should use Auspex. If he has it.
Your game, when we came in as undercover werewolves, because we had a mission, our mission really wasn't to kill a whole bunch of vampires, but we came in with a specific mission. The first night I came in, I got Manner of Being twice. The first night I showed up.
And I think that was because it was you, because until that night, they never auspexed anyone. I had 7 Justicars show up at that city, and not one of them got auspexed to see if they were who they really were.
One of them was a person I had never actually played with before.
Really?
Yes. She no longer played in your game. She quit a little bit later after Gen Con. But she was one of the people who said Manner of Being.
And she still knew who we were.
She knew who we were by proxy.
Dave.
Well, yeah, and it's because you guys always play werewolf characters. And if you can, and every vampire player knows it, and they're going to ask Manner of Being to everyone.
Form of metagaming, by the way.
I know.
It is.
I don't do it. I know that.
And in case you're listening to this and you say, what's metagaming?
I asked somebody that took over the city because I was not a werewolf that time.
If you're listening to this and you go, what's metagaming? Metagaming is using knowledge that your character would have no way of knowing. Whether it's like Wes just said about, I know West likes to play werewolves. And I have auspex, or my buddies have auspex, so I'm going to tell him. And now every time he sees West, he's going to auspex him to see what manner of being, because I know what West likes to play werewolves. Even though it has nothing to do with any motivation of the character, because the character doesn't know if West is a werewolf or not. Now, if there's been incursions or something, maybe you discovered an undercover Sabata werewolf, sure, I can understand using auspex to determine certain things, but it has to fit within that role, that new assignment.
What goes even further is I passed every manner of being as being a vampire. You know this, I know this, we know why. Yeah. But yet, there was still players that every time they got me and started speaking to me, they'd throw chops or they'd take me into the room of truth and they'd ask me questions, even though they've already mind scanned me, they'd already RSpexed me, they have already shook my hand using, I think, obey is another way of learning if somebody is a manner of being. And everybody's figured out that I'm not a werewolf. I'm playing a vampire. People still have questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they're still going to try to make you slip up and reveal that you were a werewolf, even though you had ways of hiding it.
And quit the game.
Exactly.
Like some people did.
Yeah.
Well, see, one person that had a question about the game had a very good reason. That's because at the time, you had said if you were going to mess with the werewolves, these people are going to play the werewolf NPCs over here.
Yeah.
And we were playing werewolf NPCs at the time. That's what we kept telling everybody. We're playing werewolf NPCs.
Yeah.
Talk to the werewolves, go over there. Well, when we did the description for the werewolves, the description I gave was a white wolf with pink eyes, which would be an albino. And my character, when I was playing my vampire, when everybody kept asking me what a werewolf or a vampire, I kept showing I was an albino, which is a perfectly good reason. If you mess with the werewolves, you see this albino wolf, you see this albino human. Albinism is such a rare thing. I'm going to question whether or not my knowledge is correct.
Same thing.
Yeah. Right.
Which gave that person enough excuse, and I had absolutely no problem with it, to keep asking the questions.
But it's people who are new, or you don't have, if they have no reason to ask you what manner of being you are. You know.
I mean, personally, if I know that there's werewolves somewhere floating around, and I know there's Sabbat completely surrounding the city, I'd have no problem the first time ever meeting somebody being like, manner of being, are you a Kami or Sabbat?
Yeah.
The first time I ever met the person.
But then after that point, I mean, come on. Maybe check up once in a while or you Kami or Sabbat.
And there was a long time before you got your acknowledgement.
Oh, it went, what, 2 months before I got acknowledged?
Yeah, I got right on the first night.
And I think...
Well, that and people kept missing the game.
That and Gene, you had filled in as Theo Bell.
Yeah.
So they automatically thought you were a vampire.
Yeah.
Even though they know you play werewolf.
Which is metagaming again, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. But anyway.
Again, it's because I rock.
Which, I mean, I understand how certain people play, and that way I play towards those people in that way. If I know somebody's a metagamer, I'm so going to lie to them, I don't even care.
Oh, yeah.
Just because I don't want that metagaming to even come up.
That's why it's kind of fun to mess with the metagamers, because you could totally tell them something not true, and then they go spread lies and all that, and then,
And then it blows up in their own face.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know what's more fun? Is when you're playing in a game where no one is using auspex, and you lie straight to people's faces, they don't auspex you. Later on, they spread that same lie, but then when they get auspexed, it's the truth.
Yes, because
as far as
it's
I know,
what they believe. Yeah,
that's what happened to me with my Giovanni down in Franklin.
You know what? One of these days, I want to play in a vampire game where there are werewolves, and I'm not going to be a werewolf. Actually, that's happened once. And that was when we were playing down in Franklin. I was playing a Brujah, social Brujah, and the guys came in as a werewolf pack. And that was the only time they've ever played werewolves where I wasn't playing werewolf. I was playing a vampire.
I've played a vampire game when there were werewolves and I was playing a vampire.
Yeah, you played Theo Bell for me.
Well, outside of that, there was I2T. And even then, we still became the enemy of the game.
Well,
it was
It's because you're black.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
It could.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
I do want to kind of move on to my last topic, which, I do. Because I'm at over 2.5 hours of
Gold. 2.5 hours of gold.
Silver.
Gold.
But no.
Baby.
Platinum.
Uranium.
Uridium.
Ooh.
Okay.
Diamond.
Wow. Okay, moving on.
Next topic, John.
Next topic is the hands-on storyteller versus the hands-off storyteller.
This would be plot train versus vampire LARP.
Not really. Not really.
Well, I say that because
I mean, yes and no.
Very hard to implement plot in vampire games. It's like
Okay.
two people are like, "This is my plot,"
It's
and then
plan
they don't
A.
tell anybody else.
Okay,
Yeah.
here's the thing. When I ran my game, the most recent game, I tried to be a little more hands-on. I played NPCs as needed. I pushed plot. I didn't try to shove the plot in people's face, but I was a little persistent with certain plot things.
you got to smack people around with the plot dick every now and then.
So they started complaining, and they started going, "We want player-driven plot." So I decided, okay, I'm going to step back. I'm not going to run any plot or have any story and let you guys make the story. And you know what happened? Everyone sat on their ass the entire fucking night, and we wrapped up at 10:30 because they were all bored.
See,
No,
when-
except for the ass raping that happened. That
Yeah.
was hysterical.
Yeah, there was that.
No one really did get
what you
To
do.
clarify, it was an in-character thing, not an out-of-character thing.
Otherwise,
It
she
was
wouldn't be
hysterical.
laughing so much.
She'd be crying.
She'd be crying still.
Depending on
It wasn't
who.
even me.
But it's like, if people want character-driven plot, the problem is they don't realize that tells the storyteller to back off. As a storyteller, what you can do is you can go through like, okay, what are your flaws? What are your backgrounds?
Yes.
What are your little quirks in your character
How can I screw you?
that I
Why
can
didn't
screw
she
you
submit
over?
a background?
Okay.
Why didn't she?
Yeah. Here's the thing too, and I could have taken a different step toward being hands-on. I could have done what you were saying. I could have looked at people's characters, and Ongley tried to push me in that direction. He made a nice little list of everybody's flaws and derangements and yada yada, but I didn't use it because it was Ongley and he was abrasive, and I don't like it.
It's hard to be that person too.
Do what?
It is of like 20 and 30 people.
Yeah, it is
it's
hard to be
like
personal
I'm gonna pick on you, and I'm going to pick on
Toward
you.
20, 30 people.
Well, that's
But
when you
can
take like,
do it.
okay, this many people have enemy of this, but they didn't specify who was the enemy. So everybody's enemy is going to be this Sabat pack.
Yeah.
So you're not getting one or two people.
Right,
You're getting
there's that example. But here's the thing. Okay. You can be hands-on by going that route where you take people's sheets and maybe you assign a storyteller to handle a specific character. Here, I hand you the character. Look at their flaws, their derangements, their negative shit. Look at all their stuff. Design a plot aimed toward that character, which is what I had Josh Elliott doing for a little while. And the one plot he was able to run, he did really well. Except it may have been even two, I don't remember. I know he had at least the one character that he did plot for.
I was supposed to do the second one, but we never did it because I became staff.
Right. You can go that route, or you can, by being hands-on, you can shove plot cookies out there left and right, throw them like you're throwing confetti everywhere.
well, it happens in like personal actions and public actions.
Exactly.
Stuff like that.
See, and that's where you also become hands-on with the downtime actions and getting those things done too.
Yeah.
But then you've got the hands-off storyteller, which is JP running his game he's running now. He's told me that he's going to be more hands-off. Okay. Because I went to his game and I go, hey, I want to play an NPC for the night because I'm not sure if I really want to play. I'm just kind of burned out. But I figured I'd come along for the night. He goes, I don't have any NPCs. I don't run NPCs. And I go, really? And he goes, yeah, I'm a hands-off storyteller. Okay. Player-driven plot, yada, yada. All right, so I figured I'd check it out. And it wasn't that bad. Yeah, they still had the freaking 3.5-hour meeting, Primogen meeting. City meeting, whatever. It was annoying as hell. So I decided, okay, well, I need to entertain myself.
Which happens way more often than it should.
Well,
Yeah.
it happens all the time in Vampire.
Yeah.
I have something to say to that, but I'll say it later.
Okay. So I had decided that in order to entertain myself, I sat there and I thought a second. I go, well, my character is a straight out of the book character. I took one of the sample characters from the Gangrel Clan book, the Provincial Scourge. That's the character I made.
Well, why don't you tell everybody? No, I'm joking.
I don't care if they know. He's the Scourge in like northeastern Wyoming or something like that, because Wyoming's got a very small population density.
He's a scourge of BFE.
Yeah, pretty much. He is a scourge of a large tract of land with very few people. There might be one town. The prince that runs the state is a Bruja that is extorting the uranium mining that they're doing out there. He's getting a cut of it by selling some of the... He cooks the books in the mining business. He makes it look like they mined less uranium than they actually have, and then he sells the excess to the Russians.
Wow, real life plot.
Exactly.
Except for his Korea.
Yeah. Well, I thought about either North Korea or Russia. But no, so that's what this Bruja prince is doing. He's an enterprising young man.
Iran.
Yeah. Iran. So I come in and I'm looking for... I looked at it. He handed me a list. It had everyone's character name and the player. It was the sign-in sheet. So it had the character name, player name, and then next to it he wrote what each clan was. So that way I would know what the spread of clans was, and I go, okay, I'm going to play Gangrel. That's why I chose that Gangrel. Because it was quick and easy to do, I just made some minor modifications. And I'm like, okay, why am I here? Why am I in Indiana if I'm a Scourge of Wyoming? And I go, wait a minute. The prince, his child was Diablerized. And I'm looking for the Diablerist. There we go. And then I'm like, what's the Diablerist name? Well, apparently there are like 7 characters in his game with the first name of either Alex or Alexander. So I said he's a character.
All 3 of us.
I go, he's a character named Alex. His name is Alex. I'm looking for Alex from out west. I found 2 Alexes from out west. One of them's a caitiff. An acknowledged caitiff, mind you.
That one.
Oh.
So I automatically go, I'm looking for a caitiff named Alex.
Uh-oh.
They introduced me to him. It's played by Dan Gentry. Alex Turgolov. Or as Todd, I forget what Todd's character name is, had said, Alex Turdburglar. And that was something else that Josh had mentioned. He goes, my God, I wish people would pick normal names. He goes, thank you, John, for picking a normal name. I picked Jerome Hadley as my character name.
Relatively normal.
Everybody wants their name to be important. No one wants it to stick.
You know what my sire's name is? William Johnson.
Bill Dick?
Yeah. Bill's dick.
Well, in Vampire especially, in Werewolf, it's like, most people don't care what their real name is.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, my deed name is this, and it's so awesome. But nobody ever comes up with a reason why they have the deed name.
Yeah, they don't...
I always have a real name, and I go by, like, a middle name if I have a middle name.
See, and I picked it... I read the background of the character, and I'm like, okay, he's a fairly recent embrace within the last 50 to 100 years. I mean, he's not very old at all. He's 11th gen. I think the gen cap's 10, so I went 11. But then I also took Secret Diablerist. So he was actually embraced 12th gen and then Diablerized somebody. Probably the prince's child.
This is the guy who did it
I needed
here.
Alex to bring back. No. Not saying he did it. I just need one to bring back.
That's exactly what I'm doing, too. Is I'm trying to get as much information on one of the Alexes as I can to get it a close enough match with my fictitious story to take it to JP and go, okay, I'm taking him back to the prince and saying, this is the guy that Diablerized your child. The thing is, Josh, by being the hands-off storyteller that he's being, I was allowed to make my background whatever I wanted within reason. I mean, obviously I can't say, yeah, I embraced George Washington. But he has no problem with me being a scourge in another state for a
It's gotta
prince.
suck to have wooden teeth, right?
Yeah. Wooden fangs. Yeah.
Sharpen that down there. I'll bite you in the heart and stake you.
Oh.
Win.
Nailed it.
You know somebody out there has done that.
I know somebody out there's going to be like, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm going to use that.
But nonetheless.
Still hard to bite somebody in the heart. But
Yeah. But nonetheless, brain died. But yeah, by him being hands off, he allowed me to create this immense background that didn't really do anything to his local game because my character's new to the city, came from another state, so therefore he didn't really care what had happened as long as it wasn't something outrageous. So I made it something reasonable. The prince is a Bruja. He skims the uranium mines, sells it to the North Koreans. I work as his scourge. I'm looking for a guy named Alex, common enough name. Not overly specific.
What you were doing was you were creating player-driven plot.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, most people say, well, we don't want the plot bus to run us over. We want character-generated plot. Most people don't realize you as the player, you as the character, have to generate the plot.
Exactly. So by me generating my own personal little plot, basically, of pull the wool over the prince's eyes out here, bring him his supposed Diablerist, which I need to somehow make him have veins, which that can be easily arranged. Especially if I get Lenny to do it.
Then what you do is you embrace somebody else with the same name as the Childe, drain him dry, make him Diablerize, and he Diablerized, blah, you're Childe. And then, wait,
Did you Diablerize Fred Flintstone? Yes. Whatever the name.
Why you Diablerize Fred Flintstone? So therefore, he thinks Fred Flintstone is who he Diablerized. So it's true to him.
Exactly. But while I was bored and socializing, we're sitting downstairs. There are some couches. There's me. Who was sitting there? Was it Todd?
person B.
Person A, person B, person C.
There was me, Todd, Byron. These are all the player names, by the way. Josh Jackson, Scott Triano, Bethany. Victor eventually joined the conversation briefly and left because it wasn't inciting enough for him.
It's a group of players.
So we're all sitting there. The characters are socializing. I'm playing my Gangrel. Todd's playing a Malkavian. Byron is playing a Toreador named Lenny. Josh Jackson's playing Reverend, who is, I want to say Tremere. I don't remember. He's a Catholic priest. I know that much.
That can be done. I've done that.
Yeah. Triano is playing the Gangrel Primogen, Mr. Bent.
Get bent.
Exactly. When somebody wants him, get bent. And then Bethany is also playing a Toreador. Eric Neff, who's portraying the prince, is also a Toreador. His punishment for everything is death by fire.
I like fire.
Yeah. So anyway, we're sitting there talking, and we discover, in talking to Lenny, that Lenny is Humanity 4 and has never frenzied. So I have taken it upon myself that I want to remedy both of those problems at the same time.
That's mean, by the way.
That is.
And awesome.
And I was going to do it had the prince not been there. I went to the bar. Lenny is there. The prince is there. Barry's character, Dallas, I think his name, is there. And we're all talking, and I go, hey, Lenny.
Point of order, how did you figure out in character his humanity was 4?
He... the way he described it, because he basically described the sins, the humanity sins.
Yeah.
And he knows he can do this and not feel bad, but if he does this, he feels really bad. So I guess he basically passed his humanity check. But the way he portrayed it gave me the idea it was humanity 4.
Okay. So he was high
regardless, he's high humanity. That's the impression I've been given. I don't know specifically that's 4, but in talking to him, obviously, it's 4.
Try to make sure it doesn't look like metagaming.
Right. So I've taken it upon myself. Because considering someone is nice enough to have a reinforced semi-trailer for Vampires at Frenzy, I've decided that I'm going to attempt to kidnap Lenny, take him to said trailer, cause him to frenzy, and subsequently kill this human because he's hungry. So thereby losing a lot of humanity and frenzying in the same stroke is my plan. Whether or not it'll work.
You were crossing your fingers on the losing humanity part.
Yeah. Well, I thought about making it akin to having Diablo Rise, so it was
Making
automatic.
a child.
Yeah, making a child. There you go.
I feel really bad about this.
No, I don't. I'm humanity too. I mean, yeah, I also had to make a check because it's all premeditated. I'm premeditatedly having that person killed.
You are going to have to make a check.
Yes. But regardless,
You're going to make a saw, aren't you? You're just going to do saw.
almost.
You're going to trick
So,
somebody.
so I go
You
there.
want to play a game?
We're talking. I go, hey, Lenny, do you think we can step off in private and finish our conversation from Elysium? And the prince goes, I don't think it's appropriate for you guys to talk about that here. And I go, that's why I want to step off in private. Well, you don't need to go talking about how much you hate the rules I'm making or something like that. And I'm like, and then he storms off. And I look at Dallas and go, what the hell is he talking about? I think the prince is mistaken. He's the prince. He's never mistaken. And I'm like, gotcha. That tells me the attitude the characters have about the prince. The prince is always right. No. My character's of the opinion he's wrong. I don't care who he is. I don't care if he's the prince. He's wrong. He's mistaken.
When every punishment is death, he's not wrong.
Right. So I wish I could have made it to the last couple games, but not able to. Well, tomorrow's the next game. I'm not. I don't know if I'll go or not. I may. It depends on what all's going on. But I doubt it. I don't think I'm going to make it. I didn't make it last time either. So, but nonetheless, so yeah, so by him being a hands-off storyteller and not throwing plot out to everyone, you do run into the occasional person that does get bored. And that's where, in my opinion, other players, if they see someone bored, they should go, well, that person looks like they're bored. They're sitting there all by themselves, twiddling their thumbs. So I'm going to go strike up a conversation with them.
This could lead to good, or this could lead to bad.
Right. Well, and you also got to look at it, okay, would the character...
Yeah.
First thing, would the
Only if it's
character...
Marcus.
Yeah. Would the character go strike up a conversation with this person sitting by themselves?
Love you, Marcus.
I like how he's pointing at me the whole time he's saying
You
that.
just happen to be there. You're sitting over there all by yourself.
You're an example.
I
don't
have
know.
an example because about what I'm about to say.
But it's basically, if my character would not approach someone sitting by themselves, fine. But that's why I believe in good metagaming and bad metagaming. Good metagaming is, even though my character may not do it, I think my player, as a player, I should, to get that player involved in the game.
Well, that goes towards helping new people. You know, if the new person's to the game, they're not going to know what the hell's going on. They're not
Exactly.
in any of the clicks. So who's going to talk to them? And that's mentoring,
Yeah.
and that helps
But
the game.
but that was also why I liked the way Josh started his game. And then subsequently, Caleb has done the same for his Changeling game. They called it speed dating. You get with Storyteller prior, you make your character. You don't think up a full background, but you think up more of like an outline, a generalized background. You come to it, you sit down across from each other for however many minutes at a time, whatever normal speed date does, I guess. It's like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So you sit across from each other for 5 minutes, and you tell each other about your character. Switch to the next person. One person goes that way, one person goes the other way, so you get exponentially further away. But you end up talking to someone new each time, and you tell them 5 minutes, or however many minutes about your character, and listen to the same amount of minutes about their character. And you move on and on. Eventually, you get a good idea of what's going on in the city and how to best proceed with your background. And they get a good idea about your character, So it's like, okay, so I know this character is good at art, and this character's into this, and this character's into that. The way it was explained to me, it was kind of neat. Everybody seemed to like it. I wish I could have went to either session.
I can see how that is terribly necessary in every other game except for Werewolf.
It gets rid of that awkward first game.
Actually, it's more perfect for Werewolf because in Werewolf, if we're in a pack, I have to know what your backstory is. You should have to know mine because we're family. We're closer than family.
Well, that's what happens in a werewolf game. You go, here's my character, and they go, all right, get in your packs, and you go, okay, we're going to talk. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to have to.
And here's the thing, though, too. A lot of times when you decide I'm going to go play a werewolf game, you try to get your pack together beforehand, which is what we ended up doing.
Very rarely are you like, I don't know anybody. Yeah. Go over there and get a pack. They don't know who anybody else is.
It's best for that to create packs that they can talk to each other about the pack to not have a pack of I think there's a pack with 5 Galliards in it.
Yeah.
Because when we came in, they're like, do you guys have a Galliard? We're like, well, we don't have a Galliard. We have a mega pack. Why? Well, we got 4 Galliards over here that need a pack. And we're like, wait a second. There's 4 people who came in here by themselves playing Galliards.
Whoops.
Who brought you into this game, and why aren't you in their pack?
Yeah, exactly. It's more of a pack piece than almost any other auspice.
The third can go over there by himself and do what he needs to do. He doesn't need nobody else for the most part.
Especially an antenna.
Yeah. Or Galliard, the Galliard's like, well, whose story am I going to tell? Shit.
Yeah. Okay, but you had a couple of examples.
Well, it wasn't examples. It's more or less. I'm pretty much an introverted person, and someone, I'm not going to mention who, but someone said that introverted people should not play LARP, should not be in LARP.
Introverted people help LARP. LARP helps introverted people.
Yeah,
exactly.
Smitty is a perfect example of that.
Yeah,
but what I'm trying to say here is that the storytellers that I've been involved with have not helped introverted players. They just sit there and do nothing and pay $6 to play a game, but instead of playing a game, they're just sitting around doing nothing while other people have a plot, have go to the Primogen meetings, whatever, and then when that person, the introverted person, happens to get the plot, someone comes and takes it away from them.
Well, see,
that's been my experience, and that's why I'm kind of going away from LARP.
LARP is an interesting beast, where LARP is best when everybody in the LARP knows each other, because to have cliques makes it hard for anybody to come into the game.
Well, yeah.
Whereas, if you have something like a D&D game, or a tabletop game, where everybody's sitting down cracking jokes, we don't have to be in character the whole time. Right. We can get comfortable with each other, and that makes it.
And that's the thing too. Is part of it depends on. There's 2 factors: the type of LARP you're running, and your player base. If you're running a vampire game, bigger is better.
Yeah.
If you're running a werewolf game, to an extent, smaller is better. Yeah. I like the pack game thing a lot better than I would like this bigger game with several packs. It would still be good, but I kind of like the layout they have. 3-pack games in general, and then a big game with all the packs.
2-pack games.
Those are 2? Oh, that's right, every 3 months. So yeah, it'd be 2-pack games and then that.
See, the thing is that the pack games are fun. The pack games where you try to get stuff done, but the big games, the set games, if you will, I think should be more laid back because you don't get to introduce to anybody.
The set games should be the moot. I mean, not every one of them, but
moots can get annoying. Yeah, because moot games basically say
we tried moots, and my God.
Yeah, you just sit around and it's like, who's talking now?
Well,
and who's talking
it's
now?
All road action.
After a while, it gets to be, can we just run through this and get our renown?
Well, now what would be nice is if you could take the time to get with the players that are going to portray these specific roles in the moot and have them go ahead and rehearse it, basically, and then you come to the game and then you just act it all out.
Well, it's a big theatrical deal.
Exactly.
People just sitting there chit-chatting and and trying to remember what happened. It's like, no, we got it. This is a show.
Like if the Galliards actually had their piece about what happened.
Well, like the one moot we did where Adam Denby was the Galliard and he told this big dramatic story that she really filmed. Good. That was really good. I think he did great at that. And that's what I like to see. is the unscripted, most likely prepared or possibly unprepared spur of the moment.
That requires player base though.
We had an I2T game. We went out to the woods and we actually had a fight circle.
Mhm.
I got chokeslammed by Tony Ferrara that day. But it's fun. We got out there and we trust each other enough to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
It'd be even better if we had time to plot what we were going to do. We just went out there and did it.
Yeah.
That's how it ended up. We went out there, we threw chops 2 out of 3. That was the winner of the fight, and we're going to go out and perform this fight. Then we just decided that it was going to end with me getting chokeslammed.
But that's players who are familiar with each other, comfortable with each other, doing stuff to be entertaining,
Right.
not role playing.
Then again, there's some characters, like, there have been a couple characters that I've portrayed that no one will interact with me because their character wouldn't. And people have told me that. And I'm like, then why am I here?
That's why I feel it is honestly, it takes a mixture of both hands-on and hands-off.
Right.
For the major player base, you can go, if I got 25 vampires in the game, they don't need my plot. They'll screw up enough that they have their own plot.
Right.
But for these 5 people over here, I'm going to find some plot that's going to make them get involved.
Well, and that's the thing, too.
People don't do that.
With Vampire, you've got that driving goal that's automatically in every Vampire game. I want to be the prince of the city. So I need to do what I can to fight and claw my way to get that position.
I've got to
killing
get my power.
Yeah. Now, granted, you will have characters, like she's saying, that aren't in that goal.
Yeah.
So therefore, they don't get involved in that political machine, and then they end up sitting over here.
Well, see, her character should have other goals. Like I've made multiple characters. I'm the type of person. I will just have a character concept. I write it down on my notepad. Go to the next. I have like 3 or 4 characters in a row that I've never played. One character, his entire purpose was to screw with everyone. How? He was a Malkavian journalist.
Yeah.
He went around and he was just sitting there writing down what everybody's talking about. Right now, I'm a journalist. I'm coming up with ideas. Blah 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 blah.
And the thing too is a vampire setting. Vampire is a political game, so you don't necessarily have to make a political character, but you have to make an ambitious character.
If your
character's going to want to do something, he's motivated. The
it
issue with Vampire, you have this huge eternal life. What are you going to do with it?
Right. Well, and that's the thing too. Is like, okay, I may not be interested in becoming prince, sheriff, primogen, or any actual city position. But like you were saying, okay, I'm okay being a journalist. I'm going to create a newspaper that's going to talk about all these vampiric activities. It's going to be published to the human public, but still not breach the masquerade. So you go around and start interviewing people, getting little snippet stories and stuff.
Kind of like Candy's idea.
Yeah, actually, kind of.
Yeah.
He did something similar. So you get this out, you do that, and now you're not involved in the political machine directly, but your actions can affect that political machine greatly.
Yeah.
It's like you're playing a little mini harpy.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you have to have motivation.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to entertain your own life.
Well, and that's like even with my character. Yeah, I'm not involved in the political machine directly. Everyone's involved whether they realize it or not. But
Yeah.
I'm not involved in it directly. I have no ambition to become any position of power, although Rosa's automatically already asking me to become his deputy. Because I'm a gangrel. That's the only reason.
You're a scourge. You've got to have some powers somewhere.
Well, yeah, I'm feared in another city.
Create a city war.
Which, by the way, Vampire 20th Anniversary Companion. Awesome! They have, essentially, it's a new type of stat, I guess, for lack of a better term. Now you have abilities, backgrounds, merit, flaws. They have this other thing, it costs points, kind of like merits or flaws do. That's more merit type stuff. You can take, for 2 points, for every 2 points you spend in it, you have a dot of status in another city. You can also do it as a tabletop design. You can actually buy your Primogen position in the game. So you start out in this tabletop game as a Primogen.
Well, the tabletop game is more city-based.
Yeah, but that's what reminded me was I could have, had I seen the Vampire Companion, I could have gotten that out, shown it to Josh, and said, hey, I want to take this. It gives me my dot of fear to my position of Scourge in this other town. Boom, it's right here on my paper. Now it's reflected and not just something I wrote in the background.
True.
Which I liked that. I like dots being reflected on sheets.
Well, I mean, as far as like the motivation goes, we were playing in a werewolf game where a character came in and all this character wanted to do was sit there and drink. This character had absolutely no inclination of getting up off their ass and going out and doing anything. This is a werewolf game. No. Well, it was Greg's game.
Oh, okay.
This person...
I never got to actually play in there. Like
it's okay.
He still owes me $5. Anyway.
Okay, moving on.
So this person creates this character, and it's a reluctant Garu. I can see that from just the fact he doesn't want to fight. Yeah. But it's like, look, you just walked into the sept, and the people in this sept are saying you either fight or you're going to get your ass kicked out. So it's like, do something or go away. This character decided after a 5-minute talk with the storyteller that they decided that fine, my character is going to reluctantly go with you guys to solve this problem, which I thought was rather annoying that a character would be created specifically to be non-interactive.
Not even just non-combative or even reluctant Garu, just I want to be a drunk. It's like, that is a form of horror.
Yeah. And if you have horror, then that's a character concept, which, I mean, you should portray and you should tell the other players that you were portraying a character within horror. Not, I just don't feel like it, and I'm going to sit here and drink. So, I mean, it's role-playing and role-playing versus hands-on and hands-off storytelling. Really, if it takes a balance of both hands-on and hands-off, and if you can role-play, R-O-L-E, your character to do what's needed for the game, and that's I think something people don't understand. You're playing for the game. The game's not playing for you.
Your character, your role, should fit into the genre. If I'm playing a vampire game, I should expect political machinations. I should expect to be involved in these politics, even if I'm not a political character. Does that mean I have to go make a political character? No. But I can play a physical Bruja, become sheriff, for example, or a deputy, or just be a badass and eventually get killed because I piss off everybody in the city.
Well, that also requires going at the hands-on, hands-off. If you have this little group of physical combat people over here that even if they don't get into combat, but they have the capability of getting into combat, and then you have this 6-hour meeting over here where these people are sitting there by themselves, you know for a fact they're going to try and find something to do, and that's going to lead to combat.
Right.
So as a storyteller, you have to have a plot. Like, look, introduce, hey, we know where there's a Sabbat group meeting over here.
You can either do that, or you can go ahead and allow them to wreak havoc if you feel it's necessary to either A, hurry the damn meeting up. Because that was one thing I hated.
Honestly, if they find out that, oh, hey, the other people over there are fighting Sabbat, they're going to leave the meeting and go take over that scene.
Meeting adjourned. Let's all go join the scene that we shouldn't be able to be in because it's hours behind.
Yeah.
Well, that requires the storyteller being like, nope, time freeze.
Time freeze, go finish your meeting.
It's like you're in your meeting for the next hour.
That's what you wanted to do.
Before you get anywhere close to here.
Yeah. That's what you wanted to do.
So now you can go be bored for an hour while they were bored for an hour.
And I mean, a storyteller should be able to set it up, even if he's not shoving, like Sabbat, I'm just saying, as a general rule for combat, not shoving it down players' throats, but saying it's a possibility. Yeah. And therefore, the people who want to go off and do social and people who want to go do physical.
That leads me to another little thing, too. You have some players come into a game. Okay. It's a vampire game. They expect only vampires. There are other denizens in the world of darkness. The storyteller should feel free to use them. But, however, they should use them wisely.
I have a bigger issue with people saying, it's a vampire game. Oh, why are there non-cam members here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's different. That's okay.
Arcade up here. They're not part
Now,
of
what
it.
I hated, when I was running my game, this is a Camarilla vampire game.
Get your anarchs out.
Exactly.
Bottom line, this is a canned game.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Get the
If you
anarchs
want
out.
to get technical, anarchs are part of the Camarilla.
Yeah, but then you can't bitch about Sabat snooping around the city.
Why not? It's a cam game.
Because if I have a cam book, an anarch book, and a Sabat book, you're in different books.
You're right. Don't get me wrong.
And you can't say that, oh, well, we fit in there. Technically, the Sabat can walk right into Elysium by the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'cause
Nothing says...
It's a no.
It's a no violence.
No violence.
area.
Supposedly no violence area.
Yeah, no, that never happens.
Yeah.
Sabat walk in, what happens? That gets suspended. Nobody has a real issue with it except for the people who get their asses kicked in combat.
Yeah.
But it's like, you can honestly don't do it that way. Just don't bitch what's in the game. Play the game.
See, there's that. There's play the
But
role.
roll ROLE.
Yeah, play the role. Play the role that fits the game as a whole, the genre more specifically than the local game itself.
I was going to say, because that's kind of hard if you don't have a plot. You don't know
Play-
what's going on.
As a storyteller, you need a good mixture of hands-on and hands-off. If it's a werewolf game, you're going to be hands-on. Yeah, no doubt. Because there's just too much stuff in Werewolf to not have to be.
Which is, if you have multiple packs, you must have multiple
I like to have a
characters.
hands-off day. Like, just go do what your character wants to do today. Today, the world's not trying to kill you.
See, and that's the thing is okay. Vampire, you can be more hands-off, but you still need to be somewhat hands-on when if you look around your play area and you go, let's see, the hierarchy's in a meeting over there. These guys have found something to do. These guys look bored off their ass. Walk over and kind of listen in, see what's going on. If you think they're out of character, then ask them what's up. Maybe talk to them a second, figure a couple things out in your head, and then give them something to do. Other games, I don't know that much about some of the other genres, but some games will require a more hands-on approach. Some games will be more hands-off.
Mage, I believe, would be hands-on.
Mage would be a little of both. Hands-on in the fact that there's a lot of rules to deal with, so you got to do a lot of adjudication. But you don't have to throw that plot in their face because they can generate plenty of plot. Hell, they can just pull plot out of thin air. Really,
Literally.
A lot of issue with the mage. You gotta rein in your players.
Yeah,
and be like, chill. And don't blow up my world.
I feel the Changeling has to be like that too, to a certain extent.
yeah. Changeling, you do kind of have to be hands-on, depending on. Okay, like Caleb's game, for example. The noble hierarchy, the barons, baronesses, and on higher, are all NPCs. So therefore, he has to be hands-on. He has to, at some point, portray the appropriate NPCs. He's got people portraying the baron, baroness role. He's got a Seelie and Unseelie. One's a baroness, one's a baron. I forget which one's which.
Different games require different things, and as a storyteller, you must know your players.
Yeah.
I know my group want to fight stuff. I gotta say, don't fight stuff. Or, here's way too much stuff to fight. Go figure out something else.
Well, that was like, you make the character, you give it a role, you play the role. The role needs to fit within the genre. The storyteller needs to make sure that his genre setting is running correctly and running within the genre. You don't want all this weird, goofy shit. That's why half the stuff in Vampire shouldn't exist. Like the Kaisen.
To bring back the Farah.
Okay.
A lot of people play Farah, and it's like, in the genre of werewolf, the storyteller is well within his rights to say, no Farah.
Right, because they're rare.
They're not only rare, but generally
don't like
werewolves at all.
Well, for example, when this game was announced it was starting, I let him announce it on my Facebook group. Martin's first words out of his mouth, can I play Farah? Not at this time. Then I'm not playing.
Yeah. There's been a few people and
But
a few
Martin-
games that have been mentioned that were like, I'm playing a werewolf, I'm starting a werewolf game. Can I play Nuisha? No.
Can I play instead?
Can I play instead? No. Then I'm not playing.
Well, that's like, okay. Martin, first thing he asked me in my game, can I play a true Bruja? No. That one I didn't even have to think about.
Slap
No.
yourself.
Which I'd like to point out that if you look at Mind's Eye Society rules, they say if you are 11th through 15th gen and you were embraced no later than 2011, I think, December 28th, they have a list of bloodlines that you could play, including True Bulurha, Bali, Nagaraja, Daughter Cacophony.
Okay, Bali is the one I have the least problem with out of the whole group.
It's everything you could, that they have like rules for that they haven't mentioned previously.
Yeah.
It's like because you're playing this young of a character, you're able to play this retarded at low approval clan / bloodline.
Okay, so basically, if I made a character before whatever time, and I'm buddies with the low storyteller, I can go, hey, I can play True Bruja, right? Sure. It's
Because I'm retarded.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's like I don't understand why they did that, but that makes me think a whole lot of people are going to create new characters just because they're young doesn't mean they're not going to get powerful.
But back to my point. Okay,
MC.
he then asked if he could play a Golden Zamis, and I again had to say no.
Okay,
Like,
now I'm going
You can play a Coldonic Zamis,
And
but
then
he
he-
knows thaumaturgy.
Then he goes, fine, I'll play a Tremere. But Tremere is so boring, and I'm like, I go, Tremere have the equivalent of 35 disciplines. Come on. How are they boring? They can do anything. And that's the thing, too. People make a Tremere, they don't. I mean, yes, the storyteller encourages them to stick to the core book because they don't want to get into the 300 other paths of thaumaturgy, and I don't blame them. But at the same time, encourage them to take things like alchemy or biothaumaturgical experimentation or...
There's certain things that are quite interesting to play as a character.
Well, Igor, Scott Serrano's character,
Yeah.
he took biothaumaturgical experimentation. He also was infected with vicissitude. That worked perfectly for his character. I want his leg, sir. And starts working the guy's leg off, and they're like, oh my god,
That was awesome.
that was awesome. Thank you, Scott.
I had to run out of the room for that one.
Yeah.
Only because I was a ghoul and I couldn't
And-
take it.
You know, again, play the role. And you made Igor like Death Master. He did the voice, he did the hunchback, he did the costuming.
And he didn't have to go look for something to do, really.
Exactly, he didn't. He was able to do stuff on his own just by playing his concept.
Yes.
What's a nice set of legs you have, sir? Could I perhaps have one of them? You've got two. You only, it's
You
like,
only need one of them.
yeah, you only need one of them. Can I have the other one? I could really use it. It would look nice on this other thing. And that's why I like Scott, because he can play that type of character. He has his own goals and motivations in mind for the character, just like anybody else should be able to do. Now, granted, he goes a little further than most people are able to or willing to go. He'll get the voice. He'll practice the voice.
Make up a costume.
He'll make his costume up. It was freaking hot as hell outside, and he's wearing this big, heavy fucking cloak with a big pillow thing on his back.
Yeah. I mean, I've even gone to those extremes too. So
Nah,
But
I play
again,
people who
it's-
dress normal.
I call
it's
it
a
sacrifice
character.
for the character.
Yeah, but it's a character that has to fit into the genre.
I'd also like to point out one thing about characters. That's a vampire, and vampires can do whatever the hell they want. Really,
For the most part, yeah.
as werewolves, we really are just normal humans.
Yeah.
As far as Hamid-born, human-borns go. So dressing like this for our characters,
Right.
they're saying that's not
This
costuming.
meaning normal clothes.
See,
by the way.
that's the thing. That's what I hated about giving XP for costuming. Because people like Scott, or even Adam to an extent, Adam
And
Smith,
me.
and yourself, and a few other people that are able to purchase the costumes. It's like Adam was making decent money at his job, didn't really have a lot of bills, to my understanding anyway. Goes out and buys pretty much a commissar suit. Costume, fit the character. He played the character well. And of course it was reincarnated 57 times. But, I'm not trying to knock at it.
I did
I'm
like
really,
the costume.
I'm really not.
I'm getting where at it. Damn it.
Yeah, and from my understanding, he spent a pretty penny on a costume. So, yeah, I would wear it till the buttons pop off, too.
But like me, right now, I'm playing a Thurge. I'm playing a shaman. I went to Michael's, and Michael's has like pre-cut pre-poke little medicine bags, basically. Like it was a Navajo medicine bag.
Right.
And basically you have to sew it together. You have to tie, thread it through and everything.
Yeah.
And I went out, bought it, made it, took the fringes off because that really makes it look Native American. And now I'm not playing a Native American Thurge.
Right.
And like, I'm going to use that thing and abuse that thing. Right now it has like 3 candles in it, a lighter, incense, a little plastic clover leaves.
Nice.
That I'm making talons out of, little magical items. And I'm going to use that for every single shamanistic character I make.
Well, see, and that's the thing. And I remember you had the vest for Burning Arrow.
Yes, I made my own Native American vest that had the rune moon on the front and had the Wendigo sign on the back of it.
Right. It didn't have like the feathers and the furs and.
It had some fringe along the shoulders and along the front of it. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and even if you go with, it's cheaper to make it yourself, generally speaking.
Oh, my mom
is.
sewed it together. I spent like $10 on the materials. She sewed it together. She did amazing.
And if you can find someone that can sew it together, Stacy or
I do
your mother or whoever.
Like if I sit down and think of a costume, I make it myself, unless I can buy it cheaply.
Yeah.
But everything that I've had, I've either it was a Halloween costume or I made it myself.
There's nothing, no role player should be, no LARPer should be above going to the VA, the Goodwill, what have you, buying something. If you're playing like an old out of the 70s character.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to create a character that has a certain style, it is not expensive to do so. But
Right.
I don't think people should be penalized, especially in games where they're trying to play, I embraced 10 years ago, or I went through my first change last week.
Yeah.
Those people
Or,
would be wearing normal
Here was one of the
outfits.
things I always heard. Okay, I'll use Gene as an example. Gene's wearing a T-shirt. It looks like he's wearing it over a long sleeve shirt, or it's made that way. Jeans, shoes.
Yeah.
Wearing street clothing, as it would be called. Normal, everyday clothing. It's stuff he normally wears. Should I penalize Gene costume-wise for that? I don't think I should. But here's one thing I did see. It was in the... I think it was in the Masquerade box set. I remember reading through the little book. And it talked about costuming. And one of the things it was talking about was that you don't have to go and dress up in all the stuff, but it talks about if you're playing the example I gave was a Bruja. You're playing a Bruja, it said, don't just wear a T-shirt, wear a graphic tee. Okay, wear something with an anarchy symbol, whatever. Okay, makes sense. Don't just wear jeans. Find an old pair of jeans at a Goodwill and rip the knee out of them or something like that. Wear some ripped up jeans. Wear some sort of stuff you don't normally wear every day is what they were making the point of. So you can still wear your jeans and a T-shirt. Just make it something you're not going to wear every day, like the torn jeans and the T-shirt. You sew the little black piece of cloth behind the tear so it's still closed up. And that's what I believe. That's what I like for the philosophy of costuming. It still could be clothing you could wear every day, but chances are, if I know you wouldn't wear that necessarily. You know what I mean?
Well, that's true. But I mean,
and that's also where the storyteller ends up knowing their players outside of the game as what they would and wouldn't wear.
So I wouldn't be prancing around downtown in a long dress and
Yeah,
corset and
Yeah,
cape.
Yeah, you would.
Well, I've done it once.
Exactly.
she's a pretty, pretty princess.
But anyway,
I don't have
Once
a crown.
a year, every year.
But you see what I'm saying? I'm.
Tell me something I don't know about yourself, Gene.
all right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. In closing, Werewolf, not what you think it is. It's not always combat. Yes, there is combat, but there are ways you can make a character that's not combat. It's not what you see in television. It's not the Wolfman. They're spiritual. They have multiple forms they can shift into.
We're furry
Phases.
superhumans.
Right. The various moon phases affect them. Role-playing versus role-playing. If you play the role, you'll have more fun than playing the character that's been min-maxed all the hell to be a specific thing. And when I say specific thing, I mean the boxer. Sure, it's one thing to be like, okay, he was a Golden Glove boxer, so he's got 2 dots in brawl. But then you leave it at that. Maybe he never got better. He's always been a Golden Glove. Actually, I think Golden Glove's 3. But anyway, you get the point. If I sit there and go, okay, brawl 5, dodge 5, melee 5, max physical traits, you can't do anything else except punch. Okay.
Grow as a person.
Right, exactly. Buy the abilities, buy the backgrounds. And then hands-off storytelling versus hands-on storytelling. You kind of need a combination of both, to be honest. Granted, you can be more hands-off with Vampire, for example, than you could with Werewolf or Changeling. But you've got to be able to be hands-on when you need to be. When you see players that are sitting around doing nothing because they're bored, because there's a 6-hour Primogen meeting with half the cities down there, and group click A and click B are already doing their thing, so that leaves...
And the main storyteller's locked in a room dealing with issues.
Yeah, dealing with the mob scene. Then you also, as a storyteller, got to make sure you have assistants to help you. Not just with doing like downtimes in between game stuff, but with stuff at the game too. They got to be proactive and able to do stuff. As far as upcoming events, first and third Saturday of every month is a Vampire the Masquerade game ran by Josh Board, called Trials of Night. It runs from 6 p.m. to midnight at the Prospect Masonic Lodge off of Troy and Meridian. Then on second Friday, I believe it is. If not, Caleb will correct me.
Tonight.
Well, no, tonight, this month. Next month it goes to a normal schedule. Right. Is Changeling, run by Caleb Slocum. Same location as the Vampire game that I just mentioned. It's also same time, 6 p.m. to midnight. Both games are $5 a head. On second Saturday, there is a One World by Night Vampire game that runs at German Park at the Turner's Building. They run from 6 p.m. to midnight and cost $7 per head. Then there's Werewolf that is done by the same people, but it's not technically a One World by Night game. They run a pack game each month for each pack, and then every 3 months they do a all packs game where all the packs are together and doing whatever they're doing. And that's usually on the second Saturday of every 3 months, with the next game being next month.
Well, no, last month was it?
Okay, so it'll be June. Yeah. So June, second Saturday from, 11 to 5?
Noon to 5.
Noon to 5?
11 is pretty much pre-set up.
Okay. 11 to 5, noon to 5 at Holiday Park. Was there a cost?
No cost.
No cost. Okay, so free to play.
Free Werewolf LARP. Come and learn.
Exactly.
You want to learn.
Mind's Eye Society runs their games on various nights. I had a list. I can't find any information out because I'm not on the mailing list. So I know there's a game tomorrow night.
There's a Requiem game
Saturday.
tomorrow night.
Well, I'm posting this next Friday.
Oh, next Friday? Okay.
So
on 420, there is a Requiem game.
Yeah. But on third Saturday, they do Requiem, and apparently they're going to start doing Werewolf.
Yes, they are.
On that same Saturday?
On 420, they are going to do the Requiem game, and pre-game is going to be the Gyro setup with the Vanny. Basically going over with the players, the background for the cities and such.
So the next month, third Saturday, they'll be doing a Werewolf game then? Or do you know?
The Werewolf game will not start until June.
Okay, so June. But most likely it'll be third Saturday prior to Requiem. Is what it sounds like.
Boom.
I honestly cannot answer that.
Okay. Well, if we find out, we'll let you know.
Stop making us play in the day.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, there, to my knowledge, is no LARP going on fourth Saturdays. There was one. It folded, unfortunately. It was a decent game, a spot game. That's all I got. I want to thank Eugene and West and Stacy for being on the podcast. I also want to thank some other people for their memorable moments, like Scott Triano. Very memorable player. There's numerous others I've mentioned you throughout the podcast, like Smitty and a few others. But anyway, it's good talking, and have a good night.